Alright, so today I'm back with another Blue Lock leak video, and today we will go over chapter 306. Now this is once again a bit of a sad one, as we see Nagi being super desperate and trying to do everything in his power to return to Blue Lock, but I don't want to say too much, so you will just have to sit back and watch to find out what happens. Anyway, before jumping into it, please leave a like and a comment, as well as join the Discord server. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. Also, if you want to check out the leaks for yourself, then I will put a link down in the comments where you can look at them. So we start this chapter off with seeing Nagi again, who's at school. We see some of his classmates say that class is over and that they are headed to their club activities, casually just having fun and making the best out of their school time. Meanwhile, Nagi looks up towards them and looks super sad and broken. We then see him starting to walk from school and get on his bike to go home. He starts cycling home, and he starts to wonder if he's going to feel like this forever, and if he's just going to wither away and die like this. He starts getting angry and starts cycling faster as he thinks that he might never get fired up again. He says that he hates just the thought of that, and that he desperately wants to go back, and he wants to meet that passionate version of himself again. So what he does is that he cycles all the way to the Blue Lock facility, being completely out of breath when he arrives. Anyway, Nagi gets off his bike and goes and knocks on the door. He excuses himself and tells them to please open up and to please let him in. He looks desperately towards the camera outside and says to just give him a chance to fight in Blue Lock and just one more time to let himself prove himself. However, obviously he gets no answer, which leaves him sad. However, he says that he will come again, so we see that the next day he does the exact same thing as he comes once again to Blue Lock. He knocks and asks them to just hear him out. He realizes that there's no use in it and starts to build up a tent outside, thinking that it's no use to knock anymore, but that he'll do whatever he can, which is why he's decided to tent outside of the facility. He starts doing keep-ups with the ball while saying that he will do anything and just to let him in. However, the night later comes and he goes to sleep in his little tent. The next day comes and that's when he spots a beetle, which he tries to climb up a tree and touch. He also tries to make some food, but he makes the curry way too spicy, and as it starts getting darker, he kicks the football at the door, telling them to open up before he apologizes. Nagi then sits on the ground and thinks that they won't come out no matter what. He starts to think that maybe he should try getting in from another entrance, calling this whole facility such a pain. But then he remembers that he can directly contact one of the Blue Lock survivors, and maybe he could ask Ego to connect him. He scrolls through his phone and says that he should have realized it sooner, but he wonders just who he should try and contact. He thinks that Rin is the easiest to talk to after all, even thinking that Baru would even listen to him. However, in the end, the one who will listen to him is none other than the goat Rio. However, as he tries to talk to Rio, it says that this account does not accept messages from Nagi, which makes everything freeze for Nagi as he can't grasp it. Suddenly, Henri speaks up through some type of device and says that this is private property. Nagi looks up right away and asks if it's Miss Henri speaking. Henri tells him that any further presence will be considered trespassing and that she will call the police, asking Nagi to please leave immediately. Nagi looks shocked as he tries his best to gather his words, but it doesn't go too well, as Henri instead continues and says that he is no longer connected to Blue Lock and that Nagi is now considered an outsider. Nagi looks super sad as he hears that, but he thinks that maybe that's true. He gets up and wonders just what it is that he's doing. He thinks about when he said that it was fine to Rio in the end, and says that after saying all that, he just ended up crying by himself, saying that it really hurts before putting his hand against his head and saying that he's so lame and disgusting, wondering if he really thought that he could just ask them to give him one more shot. He tells himself that he already lost and that it's over for him. Not to mention that on top of all that he still tried to rely on Rio and contact him. He thinks once again back to the message he got when he tried to message Rio and says that it's seriously disgusting and that everyone else has already moved on ahead. He looks towards the ground and says that he already knew that, but that he don't want to understand. He then kicks the ball super hard against his tent, which makes it fly away and make a mess. He continues to start looking extremely mad as he thinks that he's the only one who can't change, thinking that he's being left behind and that time has only stopped for him while everyone else moved on. However, suddenly, as Nagi has just slammed his hand against the wall and has blood bleeding from it, he hears Buratsuta from behind calling him a genius. He then looks back and sees Buratsuta, who has a smug face on himself. The ending text then says that approaching the ultimate peak is this man, the Japanese Football Union chairman. What he offers, is it the ultimate strategy or the temptation of the devil? Now that makes me so insanely interested in learning just what he will offer Nagi. With the text saying temptation of the devil, it sounds so intriguing. However, I can't think that it's anything good for Nagi, and that he has his best interests in mind. He probably just sees him as a piggy bank for him to use. Anyway, the next chapter will be called Bunny, and it will come out next week, as we have no break next week, which again is just insane. The authors are really cooking lately. We also have a quick preview for the next chapter which says, to get to know the world soccer, Isagi goes to Barcelona, and a new encounter awaits. However, I think that I will cover that before quickly speaking about the leaks for this week's chapter. Now this chapter was really sad, don't get me wrong. However, having a whole Nagi dedicated chapter wasn't that exciting anymore, like we already had pretty much this exact same a few chapters ago. Of course this is a bit more interesting as we got to see Buratsuta, and this confirms that Nagi will one way or another come back to the series, whether it will be in the U20 World Cup arc or not. It's up to see, however he will for sure come back. Like there's no way that Nagi doesn't take Buratsuta's offer. Doesn't matter what it is, as we saw how desperate Nagi was in this chapter, so I think that he will throw himself at whatever Buratsuta tries to offer him, and I'm really trying to think about what it could be. Like having this chapter now, before the U20 World Cup, I feel like it's kind of saying that he might be able to come back and play in it somehow. But at that exact same time, I just don't know how it will be possible, as Buratsuta and Ego already had this discussion before, where Ego told him that Nagi wouldn't come back. Also, I quickly want to cover the message thing where Ryo had blocked Nagi. Now we don't know for sure if he himself has blocked Nagi, but if he has, then that's such a cold move from him, but also a move that is really good for Ryo, as he really needs to focus on only himself right now. So I was kind of happy to see that. Alright, now talk about the preview for the next chapter. It said that a new encounter awaits, which makes me a bit confused. Firstly, I think that it's Sei that Isagi is going to meet, which would be insane, as we all have been waiting for that moment for so long, when Isagi and Sei meet, and maybe even team up. Anyway, I wonder if it really would say, new encounter if it was Sei. Now Sei and Isagi aren't like best buddies, however, they have played against each other in the U20 match, and while they didn't talk much, they still know of each other, so I'm not sure if it would be called a new encounter if they were to meet, but maybe it would. Who knows? Anyway, I think that if he goes to meet Sei, it will be insane, because at the same time, I do think that Sei is looking forward to meeting Isagi as well, as Isagi seems to be someone who's really interesting to Sei. I'm of course talking about when, at the end of the U20 match, Sei said that Isagi had the chance to change Japanese football, which is why I think that Sei is interested in him, and probably wants to see how good he can really become. Like, I even think that if Isagi were to meet Sei, he would be willing to train him and do kind of whatever Isagi asks. Anyway, if it's not Sei, then I guess that we will either way see a really cool new character, so either way, we are winning whatever happens, really. They also specifically mentioned Barcelona. Now of course that's just a city in Spain, and there's a city called Madrid as well, and I'm not sure where Real is located. However, I think it would make more sense to say that he is headed to Madrid if he were to go to Real and meet Sei. But either way, we will just have to wait and see, as I'm super excited for it. Please let me know what you think about all of this,